So here's an old concealed 3-hole tap which I'd like to replace. You can see that there's multiple brass fittings excluding there and we're having real trouble getting it out. One of the problem areas is, if you go under here, all of the fittings are up in this little canopy bag. This little concealed area in here, which I'll show you soon. So here's the concealed cavity behind the sink. You can see I've already had to go with a renovator and a metal attachment to try and saw through that. But firstly, it's not budging at all, and the saw isn't deep enough to cut through the whole pipe. So I'll have to jimmy something else up. I also don't know what I'll do if I do get that off with the other side, because around here there's presumably another one. And looking across this side, it's a bit of a concealed access issue as well. I went to the plumbing store and they said I might have to take the back wall off or remove the whole bench top to get through this stainless front area. But I'd rather not, so I'm going to try something else. So the hacksaw by itself wouldn't fit. This part's too thick to make it through. So I've taken a hacksaw blade and professionally duct taped it onto a file, so I've got a hot handle to hold, and hopefully this little part will be enough to poke up and cut as I need to. So the old hacksaw duct tape to a file was working, but a bit slow. So my next thought is maybe I can try these Dremel cutting blades, but they're just too big to fit in there, so I might cut something else until I get it a bit smaller and then use that. Well, after quite a bit of dremeling, I've made almost no progress. I couldn't get the blade in square, so I had to come on that angle, which did loosen it up, but I'm still not able to get anything out. I wrapped a tie down over the top of that and tried to pull it down. It bent a little. You can see that it's opened up, but not enough to let me finish anything. So I'm going back to this hacksaw on a stick to try and get through the top of one of these cuts. So it's not going that well, but my hacksaw on a stick is making good progress. I think one thing is that the Dremel opened up a path, and for once it started, the hacksaw was quite quick with this soft metal. But it's still not easy holding your hands up, and you really got to take a lot of breaks. So keep going. So knowing that the pipe between these two is loosened up, I managed to get this cold chisel and tap it sideways, which seems to have broken free the midpoint of the pipe here and allowed it to split sideways. So then, heading underneath, I could pull on this PEX pipe and force the whole affair to tilt. I'll get a bit of light on the situation. You can see the whole pipe fitting is twisted, which means I get my first glimpse of how it's actually fixed. Up in the back of here, that square looking bracket, I'll try and point to it, goes vertically upwards towards the roof, so away from me, and you can see a small screw coming out there. So if I can get my handy dandy file and a stick into there, I'll have the whole thing undone. Marvellous, and I'll know what's involved on the next side. Struck upon a bit of a gold mine here. When you activate the Dremel and it spins, it can slip in sideways and just cut its own track to get inside. Although it can't now, it does when you try and have it spinning. And so I've managed to get it halfway inside this one that's most easiest to get out and cut right around the outside. So with that part gone, I should be able to move that whole area loose easily. So to look at this all again, make a new plan of attack. You can see I got some real space between the splashback and the remnants of my tap now. I got that central one out. That's just split itself off and twisted away after it dremeled through those two pipes. So things are looking up. Now I got to twist this one and try to get in the back to that little bracket that's holding it on. It looks like it might only be one screw, but that's one screw too many for someone with my skills. So with my crowbar jammed in there, you can see the shiny brass part, which is an upward facing bracket, and hopefully I'll be able to get my file in there. Finally we get our first glimpse. You can see that was the square edge we could see before, And there's the top of the mounting plate for how it was mounted. All those scratches come from my hacksaw slash stick, which I think I will now call the hack stick. So, in review, we have one big hole free, one central hole free, don't know what I'll do with that. And then we have the cold side, not free, and with much less access. So, that's the next problem. So from this side, you basically can't see anything, and if you remember the shape of the other one, it's going to be quite a while towards this stud before we get to the actual mounting point. So I don't think my hacksaw can get in from here. Looking at the layout of the old one, you can see it's likely going to be just above the top of the ring. So looking in the old hole of this left hand side, let's see if we can see it. You can just see my scrape marks at the top there. So it's roughly in line with the top. On this side, still can't see it, but you've got to believe it's there. So my next idea, I never really saw what fitting is actually at the top there, whether it's a screw or a nail. But if it's a nail, maybe even if it's a screw, maybe I can just force some wiggle room in this pipe. You can see there's already a bit, and get the fitting out a bit. So I've started cold chiseling on the bottom of it to force the top out. So after a bit of banging on that lower edge, it made this slack, and you can see it's wiggleable. Then I got my long nose pliers and could go to the top of this and clear out the expanding foam the previous owner put in there. And with that pushed all the way down, and a bit of a good head torch, and just the right angle, you can see the fitting holding it in. So if I can just get a screwdriver that fits that, woo! And just like that, we have it loose. It's now dangling about in here like crazy. Doesn't really help me in terms of getting it out, but woo, what a start. So here's what it would have looked like inside. I had to jimmy it quite aggressively to get through all the old expanding foam and pull it down like this. And you can see how it was screwed on that top fitting. You can also see my butchering attempts at dremeling, cutting it in the middle where I didn't realize it would be going into the next pipe. So that didn't help at all, other than heat it up. And there's my chisel mark from pushing it down, but it's out. My trophy cabinet, excuse the dirty dishes, but yeah, it would. Another day, another plumbing session, and today you can see my problem with the threaded pipe. So this is the 32mm pipes I bought from out of 10, and I can see this is the pipe that will be hidden behind the splashback. This is a backing nut that stops the pipe coming out, and you got a pleasant little gap in there that'll be squeezed between the whole affair, and then this is the start of the actual pipe. The trouble is that with this cinched up as tight as they can go, there's still a lot of wiggle. I don't know if you can see it, there's still this little pipe can wiggle, and I'm sure that's going to be a leak. It's not going to be good enough. So I need more thread on my pipe. So I went and found this offcut, and I'm going to have to cut a new length. So here I can see the standard pipe is a little over 30mm, which is fine. So I know if I want to make it just a teensy bit longer, probably 35 to 40 will be enough. So to account for some mistakes, I'll get my hatchback, my hacksaw, and I'm going to mark a thread at around 40mm, which gives me some room to file off a nice end. And I'll mark that here and then cut it off square and then file out the threads again. Here we have it. Here we have it with my new 40mm piece. I finally have enough thread to thread this on and my backing thing and this and have it tight on the back. So that will work if I can get it placed in there nicely. So about to head back under the bench, and my rough plan is I've pre-threaded on this pipe, so that's snug, and I've got this backing nut at about the range that lets me still thread on the tap there, just a little bit. So I'm hoping to be able to thread this whole affair up under here and back through this hole, and that nut will just pull up snug against it and I can tighten it with the tap. That's the plan. So, having learnt from my mistake hopefully, I cut one side a little bit shorter so that it won't push out the bench top a tiny bit. Hopefully it all still threads on. I've tidied up the ends of it with my nice file so that they can get a good seal on the rubber inside here. You can see that needs to seal on there rather than around the thread like every other joint.